Welcome back to Score on Business, and our next guest, James Crater, is co-founder and CEO of Speara Health. Speara Health builds software tools for the behavioral healthcare space. James, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so how does Speara add value? Who are your customers, and how do you add value for them?
Yeah, so it's an interesting model in that we have two very important different types of stakeholders, right? So we've got our providers who are large treatment networks. They'll have residential
substance abuse or alcohol abuse.
Yeah, it's usually substance abuse, but we also work with depression, anxiety, things like that. So there'll be large networks, and then we also, so they're our customer, right? They're the ones that pay us.
Right.
But we also have this very distinct stakeholder group, the patients themselves, who they're not paying us, but we feel a lot of pressure to make sure that the software we build provides a lot of value to them too.
Right.
Our platform is two-sided. So we've got a mobile app for patients on Android and iOS. So
the mobile app for the patients is focused more on aftercare and making sure that they're staying engaged and going to meetings and all that kind of thing.
Correct. For the most part, we're actually looking at trying to integrate while they're still in treatment. But a lot of places still don't allow phones for a variety of reasons. Which is fine. So what we focused on is the period afterward. So often you've gone away to treatment, and then you're back. You're flying 500 miles home, and you're out in the real world. You have, maybe a very small support system, and you're at a very delicate point in your life. So we try to make that transition back into the real world as manageable as possible.
Okay. So with the actual providers that fund most of this, that pay for this, how are you adding value for them?
So they want to stay connected to patients even after they've left, for a variety of reasons. It depends. Obviously, different providers have different priorities, but usually it's a mixture of three different things. So they're number one, they're under increasing pressure to provide outcomes data, much like the more traditional healthcare system is also under pressure to do. Also for accreditation agencies as well, they need that data to show, look, we're giving good treatment, our outcomes are good, people are getting better. And it's difficult to do that when someone's been out of your treatment center for 6-9 months. Tracking them down and getting that info is difficult. So we try to maintain the connection, number one, for outcomes data. Number two, a lot of them do provide remote, like recovery coaching, case management services. So we allow them to do that as well. And then also there's the whole brand equity aspect too. So if you care enough about someone to keep track of them and see how they're doing even after they're not paying you anymore, and still provide them support and help them find a sponsor and do all these other things, then obviously they're going to think much more highly of you. And if they have friends,
and
family,
folks.
right, exactly. So there's kind of a clinical side and also more of a business reason as well.
Right. Well, these organizations are focused on helping people, but they also have to make a living as well, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So, kind of changing subjects to being an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is hard, especially in the beginning. Tell us about keeping a positive mindset. Yeah.
So. I'm biased, obviously, because I work in mental health. But I think one of the most pertinent challenges, it's not developing a marketing plan or making the financials work. A lot of it is really just keeping a positive, stable mindset. You're going to have a lot of. It's a roller coaster, so you're going to have a lot of wins, a lot of losses. If you're early, you're going to have a lot more losses than wins.
Right.
So the idea is trying to stay stable and realize that what's going on in your head isn't necessarily what's actually going on with the business. You could be doing really well and you have one minor setback, but then you think it's kind of the end of the world.
Yeah, and it's not.
Yeah, so that's something we've in my early career I've had to be very mindful of, is just trying to distance myself and kind of make it like an object that's away from me, and be like, that was frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. The business is doing fine. So yeah, again, I work in this industry, so I'm always more mindful of that stuff.
Well, I've been doing this show for a while, and there's certain themes, certain things that come up over and over and over.
Yeah.
And recognizing how hard it is in the beginning and not quitting.
Yeah.
At some point, if it's not going to work, that needs to be recognized.
Yeah.
But not quitting when it's just a setback and it's not that big.
Well, and that's the challenge too, right? How do you realistically assess the situation and remove yourself from biases? We're really fortunate in that we developed a relationship with the Nashville Entrepreneur Center,
right?
With a previous startup actually, and so advisors are a great way to do that.
And there's SCORE has advisors, so the Entrepreneur Center is available, and they're focusing more on companies that will get funding. SCORE is available. The small business, I can never remember their name, but their office is all over the state at a state level. There are a lot of people to help. So how important are interpersonal skills for the entrepreneur? Can you share your experience?
Yeah, so I'm lucky in that I kind of enjoy that aspect, which is ironic because in my personal life sometimes I'm less of a social butterfly, but I found in the business setting I don't know, I enjoy it more for whatever reason. I had a professor when I was studying business at Vandy, and he would always say, like, business is he would say it's not easy, but it's pretty straightforward. You make more money than you're spending. That's business. The difficult thing is people. That's the thing that it's hard to train for that until you're actually doing it. But it's everywhere. Obviously managing people, trying to get them to give max effort without burnout and really buy in. And then externally as well, fundraising. It's half of it is actually being someone that someone else wants to work with, because that's step one. If they don't like you, it doesn't really matter how good your business is. They're just not going to want to deal with you. And the same is true for sales. If they don't want to deal with you on a daily basis, then you're fighting an uphill battle. So so I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize. I think your classic entrepreneurs, like the Mark Zuckerberg engineer type, where he'd rather just sit behind a computer and hack all day. But I think a lot of people understand very quickly that if you really want to scale a business, you have to get into the whole talking to other people thing and getting out of the house.
Get someone who can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's an old saying that's been around forever. All things being equal, prospective customers would rather deal with someone they like. And the second half is all things being not so equal, customers would rather deal with someone they like. And so I think that makes a lot of sense to me. So talk to us about the importance of pursuing a business that has a lot of personal meaning and interest for the entrepreneur.
So it might be different for other people, but in my experience, I found that being able to choose something that has a lot of personal meaning to me has really made the process a lot easier. So, we talked about keeping a steady mindset. Well, it's much easier to do that when the thing you care about is a problem that you need to see solved, and not just because you want to build an awesome scalable business, but also because it affects you in a personal way. So, I've been going to therapy and psychiatry sessions for a long time now. It's one of the big reasons. Thank you. It's one of the big reasons that we got into it in the first place. My co-founder and his family has plenty of experience in that as well. And so it's nice just knowing that going to work every day, even if the business fails, you're still pushing toward a problem that really needs solving and that's really going to affect a lot of people, including yourself. And it also helps because when you're building a product that pertains to yourself, you can be test subject number one, and really kind of vet, like, okay, this might not work, this will work. So it's not a perfect system, and obviously we deal with a variety of issues, from addiction to mental health, and we're looking at working with places that specialize in eating disorders, things like that. But it really makes a huge difference.
Well, and it ties back into when you were talking about how hard it is in the beginning. If an entrepreneur is pursuing something that they really believe in, that there's a lot of, where they have a lot of passion, even though that word's not the cool thing these days, but when the going gets tough, then you can think back to, hey, why am I doing this?
Yeah, totally, because again, especially early on, it's just constant failure, right? And it's much easier to be okay with that if you're
Right.
like, this is really meaningful. Something people always say, like, if you knew you're going to die tomorrow, what would you be doing?
Right.
And my answer is genuinely like what I'm doing. Like, I feel really lucky to be able to say that, because that's not always been true in my life.
Right.
And when I switched into this industry, before we even had an idea of what we wanted to do, we just knew we wanted to be in this industry. My entire worldview changed, and it was really, really cool.
That's a good point. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, sure.
James.
Thank you.
Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week. Bye now.